Hello friends, welcome back to VOWIAS. Welcome to the mains test series discussion. We are discussing test 9 of mains and this is part 2. And before we begin, a small information. The document that we are using for the discussion is the solutions summary document of Vision IAS test series. Vision gives solutions of all the tests, and for these test solutions we are making these summaries. So the main intention of this is to reduce your revision time, because we are summarizing the 50-60 page content into 10-15 pages, so that it will become easy for you to revise the same content multiple times, which is very important from the examination point of view. Now let us quickly begin. The sixth question is with regarding to the political parties and the pressure groups. Pressure groups are the organizations or interest groups which exert pressure on the political or administrative machinery of a country to extract benefits out of it and promote its own interest. Example, the All India Trade Union Congress, agrarian groups like the All India Kisan Sabha. But on the other hand, the political parties, if you see, they are the association of individuals sharing common values and preferences, organized on ideological lines and common vision to gain control of government and policy making. Example, the Bharatiya Janata Party, the Indian National Congress, etc. So both of these political parties and pressure groups are very important for the democracy. So the basic difference between the pressure groups and political parties, if you see, so the pressure groups are formed to solve temporary problems and political parties have long-term goals. Pressure groups use different instruments like lobbying, strikes, band, etc. Political parties use political means to capture the power. Pressure groups may or may not deal with people directly, but the political parties have to mobilize masses and directly deal with the people. The pressure groups do not directly control the power, but political parties do that. And the pressure groups, they are not accountable, but political parties are accountable. The pressure groups emerge in the case of inefficient governance and inadequacy of the political parties in meeting the socio-economic needs of the people. This deficiency is filled by the pressure groups. So that's why pressure groups and political parties, both of them are important in a democracy. And how these pressure groups are filling this gap? They promote greater accountability by scrutinizing laws, policies, reforms. Example, the ADR, the Association for Democratic Reform, led to judgment by Supreme Court making it mandatory for all the candidates to declare the criminal, financial and educational background. They act as a safety valve. The political articulation of interests of minority section. Example, the NAS Foundation advocating the rights for LGBT community. Drawing government attention to pressing needs of the time. Example, RTA came out of the campaign led by the Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan. So these are the various means. Along with this, some other things what these pressure groups do is advocate democracy by increasing the political participation, by making people aware of everything that is going around them. Promote important legislations. Example, the Lokpal we can write. Increasing political awareness, encouraging political participation, like the All India Kisan Sangh for the farm bills, how they have acted along with the people and how they have promoted that. Increasing people representation, example in case of minorities and underprivileged. Government accountability, example the RTI, and the highest administrative and also highlight these administrative gaps which are there. But unlike political parties, the important thing is these pressure groups influence from outside, and they don't have any aim to gain the power and control directly. But they have certain issues, like the political influence can be found in these pressure groups. Accountability and transparency issue is there, and the funding is a major issue when we talk about these groups. The funding, they are getting a lot of foreign funding and they have vested interest. Example, we have seen the protest against the nuclear site in Tamil Nadu, in Kudankulam, where the West has promoted these protests against the Russia-backed ones. The political nexus we will see. There are divisive tendencies in caste, religion and language-based groups. All of these things are there. Okay. Next, the seventh question is with regarding to the separation of power. Separation of power is the power separation between the three organs of the state: the legislature, judiciary and executive. That is the main thing. And these organs, they should discharge their functions independently, rooted in the political philosophy. Everything is rooted in their political philosophy. Because at the end of the day, if there is no balance of power, if there is no power sharing, then it will lead to autocracy. Because this checks and balances is something which is very, very important for the democracy, and this will reduce the misuse of the power that is there in the hands of the executive, even the judiciary as well. Now, the distinct practice of separation of power in US and India, that means comparison of this separation of power between US and India, if you see, the US has a rigid approach to separation of power, while in India, it is not strict, both in principle and in practice. You, the US gives exclusivity in function. Example, Article 1 vest all legislative powers in the Congress. Article 2 vest executive power in the President. Article 3 vest judicial power in the Supreme Court and inferior courts. And India has this functional overlap between the three organs. Example, judiciary discharges the quasi-legislative function, where tribunals and quasi-judicial bodies, they are part of the executive discharge of judicial functions. That is there. And in India, there are functional plus personal overlap, unlike US. Example, Article 75.5, the political executive must be a legislative member. But in US, it is totally different. In US, the executive do not have to be part of the legislature. In US, the legislature is independent from the executive totally, and the president cannot dissolve the Congress. But here it is possible. If the prime minister wants, he can dissolve the parliament. But in India, the president must take the decision under the aid and advice of the council of ministers, who are part of the legislature. Indira Gandhi versus Rajnaran in 1975 case, the Supreme Court said that separation of power in India was limited in broad sense only. So whenever you are writing a question on the separation of power, always write this Rajnaran case. Separation of power, if you see, it is breached by the generally judiciary breaches this separation of power on various occasions, like the Sabrimala case, okay, the stay on farm bills, all these things. Even judicial supremacy can be seen in the NJC, Keshwananda Bharati case. In the resource distribution also, Supreme Court interferes, maybe the 2G spectrum or coal allocation. Even Supreme Court regulates the trade, example, the ban of the liquor on highways. Even on the executive front, Supreme Court does this, like the BCCI reforms or task force for COVID. Even environmental directives like the ban on 10-year-old vehicles, even this is also given by the Supreme Court. But Supreme Court does this breach of separation of powers because of various reasons. The first is, we have a broad political structure where things get delayed, and for speedy solution, the Supreme Court judgment will come as a lifeline. Be it the Vishaka guidelines or be it the ban of the vehicles, especially the BS4 vehicles. Also, it helps in overcoming the structural and various inefficiencies that are there in the system. It may be the corruption or the delays. Also, PIL, the public interest litigation, which was given for the people to get empowered, so it has increased the role of Supreme Court in the governance. And Article 142 gives the powers to the Supreme Court as well. The politics are guiding the legislators. This is one of the major reasons why Supreme Court had to interfere in the lawmaking, be it the UCC or be it the liquor ban. In all of these things, this is happening. Right? So these are the things about the separation of power. This eighth question is on the fundamental duties. The fundamental duties basically are embedded in Part 4A and added by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act in 1976 under the Article 51A. And this was upon the recommendation of Sardar Swaran Singh Committee. And the moral value of fundamental duties, if you see, it establishes a democratic balance by making people equally conscious of their duties as of their rights. And this is done in the following ways. So basically, at the end of the day, the main duty of the fundamental rights is to remind the responsibility of the people, because people have their responsibility as citizen, because only then the country will flourish at the end of the day. Because rights without responsibility will lead to anarchy. It is something which is not warranted in democracies, especially because we already read all of these things in ethics and all, because everyone have their own rights, and for everyone to enjoy their rights, everyone has to act responsibly, because your right starts where my right ends. So that balance have to be maintained in the system. So if you see, the rights without duties will lead to anarchy. Supreme Court in Javed versus Haryana held that the fundamental rights aren't in isolation with the fundamental duties. They both are complementary. They both are complementary. And Supreme Court in Gujarat versus Mirzapur 2005 held that the reasonableness of any restriction by law on fundamental rights can be tested by taking fundamental duties into account. Though the fundamental duties are not directly, they are not directly enforceable, but Supreme Court during various interpretations have taken the help of fundamental duties for basically giving its opinion about these restrictions on the fundamental rights. And if you see, the fundamental duties help in the following way with respect to the fundamental rights. Article 21A of Fundamental Rights, education of children from 6 to 14 years, relates to fundamental duty of the citizen to provide opportunity to their ward with respect to education under 51AK. That means, at the end of the day, children in their childhood, they need to be sent to school by their parents. So it is the responsibility and duty of the parents to ensure that the children enjoy their right. Promotion of right of minorities by making it duty to promote harmony among the people, transcending religion and linguistic diversity, and respecting the rich culture and heritage. The duty is put into limelight. They have some implicit fundamental rights like the preservation of dignity of women, right to healthy environment under Article 21, etc. These are things that are there. So this is about fundamental duties. Now let's move on to the next question, which is about the national emergency. So national emergency, if you see, the president can declare national emergency when the security of India or part of it is threatened by war, external aggression or armed rebellion, and this is under Article 352. The 44th Constitutional Amendment Act in 1978 substituted the word armed rebellion for internal disturbance. Earlier it used to be internal disturbance, but now it is armed rebellion. The emergency converts the federal structure of India into a unitary one without a formal amendment of constitution and impacts the center-state relations and the fundamental rights of the citizens as well. In independent India, it has been proclaimed only 3 times in 1962, 71 and 75. So only these 3 times we had the national emergency. In 62 we had war, in 71 we had war, as well as the Congress government then declared it. And in 75 also. So 71 basically because of war, and 75 it was because of the Congress government. Now the impact of the national emergency on the fundamental rights, this is the main part of the question. Article 358 and 359 describe the effect of national emergency on fundamental rights. Under 358, the 5 fundamental rights of Article 19, they are automatically suspended and they are automatically revived after the expiry of emergency. The 44th Amendment Act has added that the Article 19 under 358 can only be suspended when the emergency is laid on the grounds of war or external aggression. Only under these conditions, Article 358 will come into picture, and then Article 19 will be suspended. And you have Article 359 where the President is authorized to suspend by order all the fundamental rights or any of it which are specified in the order. But it does not empower the suspension of enforcement of Article 20 and 21. So under any circumstance, 20 and 21 can never be suspended, and this also enables the state to make any law or take any executive action inconsistent with the fundamental rights suspended either under 358 or 359. So this is about the impact of national emergency and fundamental rights. And Supreme Court judgments, if you see, with regarding to the impact of the emergency on fundamental right, Makhan Singh versus Punjab 1964. The Supreme Court, as long as the proclamation of emergency is in force, the right under Article 19 will remain suspended and no citizen would be deprived of his right to move to the court for writ petition in case of arbitrary detention. That means 2021, I told you, it can never be suspended. Though Article 19 is suspended, though the freedoms are suspended, but arbitrary detention is something which cannot be suspended. That means under arbitrary detention, you can approach the court. The Muhammad Yaqub versus Jammu and Kashmir 1968. Any order by the President under Article 359 within the purview of Article 13 was not a law. Hence, this cannot be challenged on the ground of violation of fundamental right. And no order can be challenged if by any means that order discriminates against Article 14 as fundamental right themselves remain suspended. So this was also said, and in the ADM Jabalpur versus Shivkant Shukla 1976 case, Supreme Court held that no person has the right to move to High Court under 226 for any writ petition when presidential order is in force. So basically, the various judgments also have given force to Article 358 and 359. Now let's look at the next question. The 10th question, this is with regarding to the 7th schedule. 7th schedule is something which will be important for us from the examination point of view, so keep a close eye on it. The Government of India in 1935 had laid down the scheme of distribution of legislative power into 3 lists. Now this is there in Article 246 in the form of 7th schedule. And many experts, including the chairman of 15th Finance Commission, have advocated revisiting of this 7th schedule. Because at the end of the day, everything or a lot of things have changed after 1935. So these constitutional rules and everything, they have to be in line with the new things. They have to be in line with the new changes that are coming up. So this was advocated like the changes in the 7th schedule is needed because a subject that was vital for legislative allocation in 1950 is no longer relevant today. Example, entry 37 of list 3 concerned with the boilers and entry 34 of list 1 dealing with the codes of wards for the states of rulers of Indian state is no longer relevant today. The Government of India dominates the state government with respect to delegation of funds, functions and functionaries and rendering them inefficient in responding to citizens' demand for efficient delivery of public goods. Since 1950, the Union list subjects from 97 to 100 and concurrent list subjects from 47 to 52 have grown, while the subjects under state have decreased. The 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act in 1976 transferred 5 subjects: education, forest, protection of wild animals and birds, administration of justice and weights and measurements to the concurrent list. And appropriate placement of some subjects need to be transferred to the state or concurrent list. Example, although given under the state list, the land overlaps with the acquisition and the requisition of property, which is entry 42 of concurrent list, a transfer of property other than agricultural land is in the entry 6 of concurrent list. So these inconsistencies have to be corrected. Many states have called for complete restructuring of 7th schedule. Example, the Rajmannar Committee in Tamil Nadu 1969 and Anandpur Sahib Resolution in Punjab in 1973. Now the steps to ensure the apt distribution of powers between center and states. High-powered commission has to be formed, when it should consist of eminent lawyers and jurists with administrative experience. There should be consultative forum for credible dialogue between the center and state to give boost to the cooperative federalism, because that is very important at the end of the day, because we are a federal country. Implement recommendations of Sarkaria Commission. The residuary powers should be transferred from union list to concurrent list, except for residuary powers to impose taxes. And the concurrent list says that the state should be consulted by the center before exercising power over the concurrent list. There should be also periodic review of the lists, focusing on the removal of outdated entries, addition of new one and apt placement of existing ones. And you have the Punchi Commission, which says that the center should only transfer those subjects to the concurrent list which are necessary for ensuring uniformity in the basic issues like national policy. This is there. Right. So these are the things that are discussed for the day. These are the 5 questions for the day. Tomorrow we will meet again and discuss the next set of questions. Right. Till then, keep studying and stay tuned. If you have any queries, do leave in the comment box. If you want to subscribe to our summaries, do let us know. Do via comments, or you can even contact us via Telegram as well, or you can leave a mail using the mail given in the description. So that's it, guys, from our side. Tomorrow we'll meet again with the next set of questions. Till then, keep studying and stay tuned. Jai Hind.